Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Cardano and its native token ADA. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's go for 300,000 subscribers. Give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So sometimes with crypto, you really have to take a step back. Okay, you really have to take a step back. And that especially applies to projects that are consolidating for weeks or months at a time. Okay, so the first thing we have to recognize is that Bitcoin is in a bull market. Okay, it's in a bull market. If we go to the Bitcoin chart, we pull up our bull market support band. Bitcoin entered the bull market way back over here. It confirmed the 20-week moving average, the bull market support band a couple times, and since then it has been in a bull market. Okay, and we go look at ADA, and we can see that it's also been basically above the bull market support band, coming down to test it more or less back in August through November. We've had another major move up. And the thing now is for Cardano, for ADA, I think that the major winners of the cycle will be the ones who can exercise the most patience. Okay, I do not see an investment in Cardano as something that you need to be super concerned about flipping tomorrow or the next day or 2 weeks from now or 6 months from now. Okay, now there are certain things that would make me want to take profits, right? I mean, if ADA were to go into some manic bubble more than it already has and go to several dollars and start trending higher and higher, then yeah, you can take profits off the table and there's nothing wrong with that. But if the idea is you have to sell it on a certain day, then you're not doing yourself any favors. It's sort of like, you know, if you want to buy a house and you're telling yourself that you have to buy a house on August 1st or something, then you have to make sure you have the capital up front to put down your down payment. Therefore, you would want to start saving capital up and not just leaving necessarily everything in the market so that on August 1st you withdraw everything. The reason why is because on August 1st, if that time comes and then you have to pay for your house, well, what happens if the price of ADA completely capitulates the day before that? Okay, and then you're forced to liquidate holdings that are already down, and you don't want to do that. This is lessons from the stock market, right? So giving yourself the flexibility on withdrawing it doesn't really matter exactly when you do it as long as you're smart about your entries and your exits into the market. So there's always a snapshot in time, right? We always have a snapshot in time with ADA. If you looked at a snapshot in April 2020, it would have been 3 cents. If you looked at it in July of 2020, it would have been 15 cents. If you looked at it in October of 2020, we would have been less than 10 cents. And now you take a snapshot and we're at a buck 18. You could take a snapshot in a few weeks and we could be lower than $1.18. But if the idea is to ride this investment out for years because you believe sort of the niche that it's filling, then I don't think you should be overly concerned about what happens in the short term. And let me show you what I mean. Okay, so this is the ADA chart so far, and we've spent a decent amount of time above the bull market support band. At the height here, we reached from the 20-week, the valuation of ADA was about 333% above the 20-week moving average. Now, we know that last market cycle, Ethereum had an amazing, amazing cycle. If you go look at Ethereum last cycle, we also saw some similar type moves where it was up significantly from the bull market support band, up 365% at one point. And then ultimately, it came down to sort of flirt with it for a while, back in April, in fact, in April. And then it put in a new high in June. And then we continued to write it down before a final capitulation, before another major move up, and then another consolidation phase where we continued to hold our bull market support band. And we did that several times with Ethereum throughout the last market cycle, and things only started really going south once Bitcoin decisively broke through the 20-week moving average. You can see that it did it in January, late January. We came back up to test it in March, but we ultimately got rejected down. For Ethereum, it fell below its own 20-week moving average in March once Bitcoin proved that it was not going to get back above it and continue on its merry way, got rejected. Therefore, the entire market bled for years. But what's interesting with Ethereum is that, even the people that, if you didn't sell up here or over here, you're still, you basically, time was still on your side, right? Time was still on your side. And we've already put in new all-time highs. Now, the time value of that money is significant, so I don't want to discredit that. I mean, this would have been, just to get to the prior all-time high, you would have been looking at 1,120 days, basically 3 years. And obviously, taking some profits over here and then reallocating it and then buying this major dip would ideally be the way to go, right? That's ideally the way to go. And that's why I say, in a crypto bull market, it is of course important to take profits along the way if you've realized a certain goal and you want to do that. But what I sort of see playing out here is we see something similar to what happened to Ethereum. You go back again, you look at Ethereum, it was this long move above the 20 week. Sometimes we tested it. There was one time where we had a major capitulation below it, but ultimately we continued along, holding it as support several times throughout the market cycle. And believe me, anyone who lived through this knows that some of these moves were stressful. 70% drops. From this peak here down, it was about a 70% drop. So Ethereum had two 70% drops in the grand scheme of the last market cycle, despite the fact that it still went up over 1,000x. Now, you look at ADA, and I don't necessarily think it's going to go as crazy as Ethereum did last market cycle. We have to take into the market capitalizations into account when discussing a theoretical ROI. But we can also look at the 20-week moving average and say, you know what? If we do test the 20-week moving average during the cycle, that could represent a key opportunity to continue to accumulate if you want to increase your ADA position. If something like this were to happen where you got a capitulation below the 20-week, and we capitulated below the 20-week about 48% from when we dropped below it, that's for Ethereum. It dropped from about $12 down to around $6 or so. So if something like that were to happen, then it would just continue to represent an opportunity if you do believe that ADA will stand the test of time and be one of the projects that will be the poster child, basically, of this market cycle, or at least one of them. So I look at this and I say, you know what? ADA had a crazy move up to about 7 or 8 cents. We consolidated there for a few weeks. We then went up to around 13 cents or so. We consolidated there for a few weeks. Had a correction down to the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA. Had a reaccumulation phase. This is when I was buying again after buying pretty aggressively over here. A move up, another accumulation phase, continuing to move up. We're back into what I would call an accumulation phase. Now, that does not mean, right, this accumulation phase here does not mean that it can't ultimately bleed back down to the 20-week moving average, right? We know that that's always a possibility, and it could always do something like it did over here and trend that way for months and months. I mean, this was from August until November. This is always a possibility for the valuation of ADA. However, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, if you think that ADA will stand the test of time, that the network is only going to grow, and that it will carve out its own niche in the space. Then these are just little bunny hills on the route to something much greater, right? Much higher. So you can't, a lot of people get sort of disenfranchised with ADA occasionally, and I see this happen every time there's a pump, is that it pumps up, there's some guy or girl, that some person that buys the top, and then they complain when ADA doesn't do anything, as they say it, right? When it doesn't do anything. And then finally, eventually ADA bails them out, and we continue along the way. And then you kind of get the same thing, right? Someone's coming in, they're buying the top, and then it kind of comes down, and it becomes this thing of, well, ADA never does anything. And if it does come back down to the 20-week SMA, then these guys are going to be the people that are hurting the most, probably because they bought the top. But again, like the people who bought over here, eventually I think ADA will bail them out. But yeah, I don't know how long it would take, right? I simply do not know how long it will take. So we do recognize that ADA is very much dependent on Bitcoin. despite the fact that Bitcoin has had a fairly significant pullback over the last day. I mean, if we just go look at how far down, well, I mean, I guess it's only down. This is not updated. It's down about 3.66% on the day. ADA on the day is down about 6%. So this is another key example of recognizing that, hey, when Bitcoin pulls back some, there's a decent chance that projects that were going up even quicker will lose more. Case in point is XRP. I mean, it had a crazy move yesterday, and with a Bitcoin pullback, you see it's down 17%. So, and also Polkadot is another good example. It was moving a lot yesterday, and you can see it's down 9%. So a lot of times it's those projects that were moving even more aggressively, and then when Bitcoin does pull back, then they bleed the most because then people are really pressured to take their profits. So we look at ADA, and it's still, I mean, yesterday, if you guys remember, if we go look at the daily candles for ADA, I mean, we were at this price yesterday. And in fact, because ADA had a nice move to the upside, once Bitcoin started bleeding, we're basically back to where we were yesterday, and we're continuing to just consolidate around $1.18, $1.20. And I think this is important for people to recognize is that reaccumulation phases, well, I mean, this is certainly extended. I don't want to give the impression that I'm going knee deep in ADA at this point. I mean, I have my position, but yeah, let's just leave it at that. We know it's extended because we've been fairly extended from our bull market support band for quite a while. In fact, the last time ADA tested the bull market support band, we could say that it was here on this wick. So it's been about 105 days. So it has been about a little over 3 months since ADA tested it, and we know that it might not test it for a while longer. If we go look at Ethereum last cycle and look at the time between test, you can see that, I mean, if you want to call that a test, you could, but it doesn't even actually reach it. The first time it hit the 20-week was 147 days later. So remember, in the grand scheme of, say, an entire market cycle, I do not think that you would have that much to be worried about. I mean, this is not financial advice. I don't exactly know where ADA is going to go in the short term. What I would say is I do expect it to trend upwards over the next several years. There will be pullbacks along the way. Nothing's going to go up monotonically, but that it is a long journey, right? It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I think people need to stop worrying so much about every little single move and just take a step back. You look at the ADA Bitcoin valuation, we see where we currently are. We recognize what we've done in the past. We say, you know what? There's still a lot of space up here to potentially move. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen next week. But over time, I think that there's a decent probability that the ADA Bitcoin valuation will trend higher than it currently is today. If you look at the ADA Ether valuation, we are still back sort of testing our prior tops. We're testing that now again as support, generally speaking. So we'll continue following ADA. I do have high hopes for this project, this market cycle. I do think it will eventually break out of this consolidation phase. Could it go lower first? Of course it could. And if that happens, I would treat that as an opportunity, not as something that would cause me to capitulate my entire ADA position. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Let's go for 300,000 subscribers. We're almost there. Hopefully we'll make it there in the next 2 or 3 days or so. We also have the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. We have a whole lot coming, including something on ADA as well. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Definitely check out the premium list intothecryptoverse.com. Some exciting things coming in Q2. Click the bell icon to turn on your notifications, and I will see you next time. Bye.